Pizza Guys girls, does your shop have a no delivery list? What houses are on it and why? Story 1. There was an older man who suffered from dementia that would order 4 fountain drinks and nothing else from my shop, then would tip about $300 every time. After hearing about it a couple times, I told my manager, and we all agreed to get in contact with his family. Let them know we wouldn't take orders from him, and that they'd have to take some measures to keep him from doing the same with other establishments. God only knows how much money that guy gave away. Story 2. I delivered to the dorms when I was in college, back before credit cards could be used to pay for pizza. In the largest men's dorm, we had a war with some of the residents after they got pissed when we wouldn't accept an expired coupon for a 14 pizza order. So they kept calling us up with ghost orders and making life hell for us over the course of a few weeks. So we stopped delivering to anyone in that dorm. As we were the cheapest pizza in town, that did not go over well with them. The RAs got every student in that dorm together and told them to knock it the freak off or get kicked out. So we tried to deliver again and the same shit happened. So we banned that dorm forever. It was cool by me because those idiots would place 5 20 pizza orders and tip $2. Story 3. I was delivering for Godfathers in Memphis in 1988. We had no delivery houses as well as areas. We had one area smack dab in the middle of our normal delivery zone that was blocked out. It was a low-income apartment complex. We got a new manager. He was eager to up his numbers, so quickly changed that area to being a legit delivery area. The first time he handed me an order for that complex, I explained that it was a really shitty complex and we didn't go there for a reason. He accused me of being racist because I didn't want to deliver to the complex. Complex was all black, I was white, manager was black, and said just to deliver it and quit complaining. Okay, man, so I drive it out there and walk upstairs to the apartment door. I knocked. No answer. I look a bit closer and it is obviously a vacant apartment. So I head back to my car and I'm sorting my money bag and next order when I glance up in the rear view mirror. I see 3 bad-looking dudes crossing the parking lot heading right for my car. I notice one of them is carrying a rifle. Holy crap! I cranked up my VW Rabbit, threw it in reverse, and hauled ass out of the lot. I got back to the shop and the new manager accused me of making it all up and said he didn't think I had even attempted to deliver it. He says to go back out there. I say no freaking way, dude. He insists, so I insist he comes with me. He agrees. We drive back out there. He carries the pizza up the stairs, realizes that it is a vacant apartment, and quickly gets back in the car. Sorry, dude, you were right. It was a setup. We got back to the shop and he marked the whole area off limits again. Story 4. A lady on our delivery route was always just getting out of the shower when we arrived and kept accidentally dropping her towel. There wasn't a single driver in our shop who hadn't seen every disgusting fold and lump on the front of that 300 pounds acne-covered body. The manager finally warned her that if she did it again, she would be banned. She of course did it again, and I like to think the resultant loss of home-delivered pizza translated into a net benefit for her physical health just as it had done for our mental health. Story 5. I used to deliver sandwiches for a shop. We had to blacklist this one lady who would call up at the last minute and demand 5,100 sandwiches for her meetings, and she wanted them delivered in 15 minutes. We explained things to her over and over again that this was not how it worked, but she still demanded her order. So, when it showed up 45 minutes later than expected, she became a monster, causing a scene, not tipping, sending in complaints to the district manager, etc. This happened so many times, and finally, one day she called in an order for 200 sandwiches, wanted it in 15 minutes. I delivered it myself, and she took the sandwiches from me for her meeting. I sat there and waited for her to sign the receipt. And waited. And waited. Turns out, she took the sandwiches into her meeting and booked the hell out of there, not signing the receipt. She then called her bank to cancel the charge on her card and called us in for fraud. She had the nerve to call up our district manager and said that we owed this to her since all of her orders were late. She was blacklisted after that, and my district manager finally apologized for not believing me on this story. Drug reps are the worst! Story 6. I used to be a delivery driver for Pizza Hut. I used to work the Sunday afternoon shifts and would have the same man order a supreme pizza every week. I was always the one to deliver his order, because most of the time I was the only driver on duty at that time of day. Alan was a nice, quiet man who had a lovely front porch. One day, I didn't take his delivery for some reason. Poor Marvin took the delivery instead on the day that Alan decides to open the door stark naked. Alan wanted to show me, a small redheaded girl, the goods. Not big black Marvin. Alan never got another delivery. Story 7. I delivered pizza in NJ. I went on the porch to see a snarling Rottweiler behind the door. Not a big deal, it happens a lot. I'm a stranger, the dog is just being a dog. The lady pushes him back. We do the pizza transaction. And as I'm turning to go, the lady said, Oh my God, he's out. The back door was open and the dog was charging around the house about to come on the porch. I quickly opened the door to run inside, but the lady screamed, "No, the really bad one is inside." And I see a bigger Roddy just inside the hall, so I stick myself between the screen door and the real door, and I'm trapped in an angry dog sandwich. The outside dog bites my calf because I can only close the screen door so much. Not much damage, but I'm bleeding. The manager goes to talk with the lady. It is like 1/8 of a mile from the store, or that lazy bastard wouldn't have bothered. And Roddies are penned up out back. As soon as the lady starts talking to him, another small mutt zips out the door and bites him on the hand. He made the call on no more pizza for them. Story 8. We had a guy and 2 girls order separately, then grab the pizzas and run. The girls had picked the food up and left, while the guy was paying. After 30 seconds, the guy bolted. It was a $100 order. My manager, who is a frequent gym goer, leapt the counter and gave chase. The 2 girls had gotten into a car with the food, but when they saw my manager, they drove off, leaving the guy. My manager chased him 3 blocks and was gaining on the guy when the girls pulled up and the guy got into the car. Unfortunately, all 3 of them went to school with a kitchen hand at the store, so we had names, jobs, addresses, and Facebook accounts. We contacted them all on Facebook and got them to pay for the pizzas the next morning under threat of contacting the police. We also put them on the no delivery list. Story 9. I am on the no delivery list of 2 restaurants because my roommate is a freaking idiot and can't do math to save his life. He once sent a driver away after a heated conversation with a 25-cent tip. Unfortunately, I was in the shower at the time. It wasn't until afterwards that he was explaining the situation to me that I realized what a moron he was. The bill came to $20.25. He gave the guy $20 and thought it was a good tip because we ordered 2 sandwiches that were basically $7 a piece and a $1 soda for a total of $15, so $5 tip. In actuality, the sandwiches were $7.99 and the soda was $1.99, so $18 right there. Then there was a $2.25 delivery fee, so $20.25. Unfortunately, the delivery guy spoke almost zero English, so all he could say was, "Not enough" to my roommate. And my roommate is an asshat who wouldn't read the damned receipt. He is no longer allowed to answer our door. Story 10. We had a few blacklisted numbers, addresses. Mostly were for people who wrote bad checks or would constantly complain, return orders, make threats. One address that was on the absolute edge of our delivery area, a business all by itself on the edge of town, got blackballed because people from outside the delivery area would give that address and meet us there. A couple of bad neighborhoods, including one that was literally 6 dilapidated trailers in the middle of a field with a 2-track going back to it. Nothing but crackheads with pit bulls and Roddies with no leash. Were blacklisted too. Story 11. Okay, we had a really nasty apartment complex in one area of Sacramento. Totally a no. One night, a new guy took an order and actually accepted one from there. I was about to call back and say no. I was asked, manager at the time, but running pizzas that day, when 2 cops come to pick up their pizza. They listen in and offer to tag along. I was dumb and crazy then, so we made the pizza and I loaded it into my little truck and drove out there. As soon as we pull into the parking lot, the cop turns off all his lights and coasts into the spot next to mine. I walk up, start the spiel, and start listening to their story of this guy or that guy ordering it. I started to walk away and one of the shady dudes stepped out of the bushes next to me, where he'd been hiding. Instantly, every light came on the cop car. Flashers, both spotlights pointing right at me. The cops getting out of the car, fast. Dude steps way back. I walk back to my car, and a couple cops got an extra free pizza that night, and I got a great story. Story 12. Worked at a Hungry Howie's Pizza in college. They are basically a cheap discount pizza chain. We had a few stores in a college town. Mine served the local college campus and the areas out west and south. These included the bad parts of town. We had a list of about 10 or so neighborhoods or streets we did not deliver to because drivers had been robbed, one of which was a rather large government housing project. That never went over well when I had to explain it to people. They often get mad at me like it was my idea or called me a racist. We also refused to hire female drivers because of an incident before I was hired. A group of people made multiple fake calls throughout the night to different addresses until the female driver showed up. When she did, they kidnapped her and raped her for days. Story 13. In the late 90s, I was still living in Detroit and in between desk jobs, so I delivered pizza as a part-time gig. Detroit's neighborhoods have been rough for a few decades now, but the 90s seemed like they were on their own level. I won't say the specific neighborhood, but there were some really rough ones. This one house, though, this house was just in awful shape. I kind of figured this would be bad even as I was driving down the street to get there. Every other house, literally, was either burned out or very obviously abandoned. This one was just ugly looking, but I tried to be optimistic. I walked up to the door, awning kinda drooping over my head, and knocked. Almost instantly, the door cracked open, and all I saw was a dark hand with what looked like a Glock. Leave the pizza and walk away. I complied, obviously, and told my manager that I wouldn't be delivering to that neighborhood anymore. Still stuck around with that job for another 6 months or so, but that was probably the only thing on that level I've seen. Story 14. Prior to my freshman year of college, 2002, I was delivering pizzas for Pizza the Hut in a decent suburb outside of Cleveland. I was the typical stoner partier, easygoing delivery guy. As a little background, one afternoon my manager requested I go change several $100s for smaller bills for our register. As I'm leaving the bank after getting change and getting into my car, I sense someone approaching from behind and suspect they are going to ask me for a cig. Nope. Instead, it's a dude with pantyhose and his head and a knife and demands the money I have in my pocket and my keys. I oblige, and he ultimately runs off and tosses my keys in the parking lot where I can see. When I ran into the bank, no one at all saw the incident, and wouldn't you know when they pull the footage, there is sun glare in the exact spot on the window where my car was parked. The cops interrogate me and search the car, but seem to conclude that in fact I was telling the truth. My manager even vouched for me, saying how I was a good kid. Flash forward to about 10 years and I'm telling the story at a party and bam, it hits me. My manager, who often dated unsavory characters, set up the whole thing. Considering I was robbed in front of a bank in broad daylight on the busiest street in my town. Who the hell would know to rob me? Especially since I hadn't put my car topper on at this point. Story 15. I worked as a delivery driver for Papa John's in high school. It was a nice weekend job. Lots of nice people in my area. Naturally, there were a couple shitheads who we didn't like to serve, and later added to the blacklist. One memorable house was this guy. This freaking guy, he would order massive amounts of pizza. I'm talking anywhere from 720 pizzas, and would pay with cash. So naturally, we would call ahead of time to make sure it was a legit order and that we would get paid for the pizza. He would answer, tell us that it's all good and that he has the cash. It would always be the same order. X amount of thin crust pizzas with double anchovies and olives, extra cheese. I would load up my car, drive over, and he would never be there. Lights off and everything. Needless to say, we were all pissed. This went on 3 times before we decided to add him to the blacklist. Then, we would get the same order to other houses. We would get sketched out and not delivered to these houses. Over time, and with many anchovy and olive orders made, we added like 6 or 7 houses to the blacklist. Not the craziest story, but it's the only pizza blacklist story I have. Story 16. I worked for a restaurant delivery service and we had 2 people that stick out in my mind. The first one was an incredibly misogynistic, verbally abusive man. Would call and order, being a sexist ass the whole time. I don't give a fuck about any goddamn special sugar tights, just give me a rib plate. And then 10 minutes later call back, livid because his food wasn't there yet. Now listen, you damn B-word. I hated that man. And it was glorious when my boss snatched the phone from me, mid-tirade, and told the guy off. The second one was one of the whorehouses. All the other places of ill repute were super nice, tipped well, etc. This one in particular, though, they'd straight up snatch the food out of your hands and slam the door in your face. Try and scam you out of money with these making change tricks. Complain about every order. Verbally abuse drivers and order takers and other stuff I'm sure I've forgotten. This was a long time ago. You'd think that given the nature of their business, they'd want to avoid the attention of the law, seeing as how they didn't even bother to conceal themselves under the name massage parlor, but openly flaunted that they were a straight-up whorehouse. I'll never get that one. I imagine that's why they were spectacularly busted about 6 months after we quit delivering to them. Story 17. Let me tell you this. One time I worked for this lady that owned Nardon's Pizza in Atascadero, CA. She was the worst person ever. No one ever worked there longer than a couple months, and she just shit on everybody. She didn't have a no-delivery list, but what she did have that was even worse was her own personal whitelist delivery book that had every single good tipper in the world on it. Example, delivery boy gets back and goes, wow, that guy tipped me $20. Owner then writes down that order name number in her book. Next time that guy calls to order a pizza she doesn't let anyone else deliver, she takes the delivery. No one knew this trick, and she just kept taking orders from all the newbies. I worked there for about 4 months and caught on after the first month or so after that. I spent the next few months claiming that the horrible tippers were amazing tippers. I would watch her go to these repeat customers and come back with a disgusted look on her face. I would ask her what's wrong, but she didn't want to talk about it. Story 18. Well, my brother and I, 18 and 17, are the 2 delivery boys for a Chinese place near my house. One day 2 months ago now, I was working and a delivery was called in from one of our regulars. A huge house, good tipper, young cool guy. Needless to say, I was ready for a nice $8 tip. I show up at the guy's door and this middle-aged man answers. I assume it's his dad. I look down to the bag to give him his total, and as I do, the fat bastard grabs my arm and tries to pull me in his house. I'm not a big kid to begin with, so I just drop the bag and pop him in the face. He loosened his grip a little, so I just wriggled my arm free and got the hell out of there. The scariest part is that the house is a huge freaking mansion like 1,000 feet off the street it's on. I think I would have been in for more than a few ass poundings if I didn't slip out of that one. A few court appearances later, he got charges for assault and harassment. Story 19. Not delivery, but pizza. A couple years back, right after I graduated high school, I was managing a Little Caesars pizza. It is hell, if you were wondering. This one lady would call with this really specific order. I think it was light sauce, double the cheese, and cooked a little longer. One night, I had a new girl working register, and she got the phone and took the lady's order. She didn't take a name as we are carrying out, only we didn't get a ton of call-ins. So about an hour goes by and the girl calls me to the front to talk to a customer. As soon as I came around the corner, this lady just started screaming at me. Y'all always mess up my freaking pizza. It's a damn pizza, it ain't that hard. I tried to calm the lady down and explain to her that someone new took her order and it was an honest mistake, and offered to comp it and make her a new pizza. She was still irate and kept yelling that she was going to get me, my crew, and my GM fired. I would have liked that. Forget Little Caesars. So I eventually called my GM because this lady would straight up not leave. He asked to speak to her. She talked to him, and then all of a sudden, after about 30 seconds, she screams, "Oh, you think this is funny?" My GM was laughing at her because she evidently wanted free pizza for a month for her troubles. I then had to call the damn district manager, who is 2 steps below the owner of 47 stores, to talk to this lady. She cussed him out too, and still was in the lobby screaming at me. Sometime during all this, her son, who looked around my age at the time, 19, came in the store and was standing with her. Now my crew had this dude named Terry, a huge-ass black dude who you couldn't see unless you were in the back because he was on oven duty that night. This woman's son decides it's time to escalate this to a physical confrontation because I am even laughing at her at this point. He opens the door to the back, and we always joked if someone did, they were going to get F up. Well, it turned out not to be a joke. Terry whipped this dude's ass to the YOMXB degree. Dude got like 2 good hits on Terry, but Terry just freaking dropped this dude in the matter of about 10 seconds, which made me think to myself, Terry should be my manager, damn. To conclude, the son got a ticket for trespassing in addition to his ass beat. The lady got banned from our store, and I got a story that I will truly never forget of how people will flip out about pizza. Story 20. I've been a delivery driver for 8 years. The only place I worked at with a blacklist was in Davenport, Iowa. Our store was in a really rough area. The kind of neighborhood with glass between you and your gas station clerk. Also had 50-cent cans of Old Milwaukee's Best and PBR next to the register. Anyway, my first day, one of the drivers got maced and pistol whipped for $32. We eventually found out the person who set it up was the assistant manager because she didn't like him. The store was robbed so frequently it refused to accept carryout orders after sundown. Yet they had no problem sending us drivers into the middle of the ghetto with food and cash. In-shop employees weren't allowed outside after sundown, so trash was never taken out until the next day, and employees took their smoke breaks in the back corner of the pizza store. The places on the list were listed because drivers had been robbed there. No matter how rough the area was, we would still deliver there until someone got robbed. Then we would blacklist everywhere within 3 to 4 blocks.